once again, this is another case of Gravity Falls doing a plot that's been seen quite a lot in kids' shows. Somebody trying to get elected for, either something in a school or something to take charge of a class. That's the way you see it sometimes. Or in this case, become mayor. It's something that's been seen in kids' shows quite a lot, and Gravity Falls giving a sort of its own kind of twist on it. To be honest, I'm not massively keen on this kind of plot because politics in kids' shows, I realise the sort of importance of, educating kids about the ideas of politics, at an early age, understanding why it's important and how it works, and, the way that they try to deceive you to, just win over your votes in any kind of way that they can. These kinds of episodes just sort of in general do kind of bore me a little bit. But, I liked the way they gave it their own kind of twist on it by bringing back Gideon, of course, having him manipulate things, and having Stan kind of actually sort of be the one person who actually was trying to win the campaigns in sort of a very sort of honest way, and Dipper and Mabel actually interfering and kind of trying to win the elections in a more sort of dishonest way. If Stan had been left to his own devices, he would not have won the election. He's sort of a terrible candidate. And it's weird, actually. Stan really didn't seem that bothered about the fact that people didn't like him that much. He's trying to win the election, but at the same time he's not bothered about the kind of negative feedback he's getting. And again, kind of a sort of standard thing again you see in kids' shows with the whole mind control thing being used in two different ways, actually, in this episode with both Gideon. I'm not quite sure what it was that he did, but, controlling his dad like that. And obviously Dipper and Mabel with the tie. And interesting this time, actually is Ford introducing this idea to Dipper. Dipper evidently was not familiar with it, so I guess that wasn't in journal number 3. I guess that's something that was in either journal number 2 or journal number 1. I'm guessing journal number 2 because you see later when Gideon's looking through, he has a page that's been torn out of presumably journal number 2 because that's the one he had. So I'm guessing Ford even been looking through journal number 2 because you see that there's a page that's been torn out of that. So yeah, I'm guessing that we are actually now finally going to get a few more things that were in journal number 2 and journal number 1 that obviously Dipper is not familiar with, and that is one of those things, the tie. Some interesting kind of I don't know if you call it Republican bashing or maybe just pro-Democrat kind of thing, with the Yes We Stand, obviously a play on Yes We Can, the whole Obama campaign from 2008. And also I think there was a knock at Ronald Reagan that Ford said at some point. I don't quite remember exactly what he said, but basically sort of maybe saying that that's the only reason he managed to win the election is because of Ford's interference. More kind of interesting sort of character revelations that we see here with Stan perhaps sort of in a sense feeling that he is now living in his brother's shadow, in a sense, with that opening sequence of Ford just resolving what was quite a stressful issue for Stan that he was doing what he could to try and sort out with that light bulb, and he just sorts it out without any kind of real trouble in a much more effective kind of way than he would have been able to. So yeah, you can see that Stan has this desire to try and make a difference in people's lives in maybe whatever way he can, and he kind of feels like his brother is just always going to be just so much better than him. Ford generally sort of played kind of a minor role in this episode, but it was kind of interesting just again that little sort of window into the way Stan views his brother, even though he obviously does care deeply about him. He devoted 30 years of his life to saving him. He still sort of feels a little bit sort of envious of him, and sort of feels like he very much lives in his shadow. Gideon, of course, coming back. I was kind of worried that they'd just forgotten about him. But no, he's back. Obviously, this is something that they have planned out since the beginning. They know what they're doing. I'm guessing that poster at the end is kind of a reference to the Shawshank Redemption. I was actually kind of expecting when Gideon ripped that off the wall, there was actually going to be a hole behind it. But no, it's something much more dark and much more interesting. We're going to have Bill come back, obviously, at some point. And I'll be interested to see how Ford reacts to that, because I was kind of, again, I'm sort of wondering why Ford has not mentioned Bill at some point, because obviously he has to know who Bill is because he was in the journal. So I want to see how that's going to go down. Gideon, Bill and Ford all together. That could be a really interesting plot in general in kids shows. Doesn't really interest me that much, I guess, because I just find politics in general just kind of boring. So yeah, I'm sure there was a lot more to say about this episode. It's just not kind of clicking with me. Obviously that's a parallel of Mount Rushmore, that little sort of statue thing that they were making for the deceased mayor that we saw at the end. Perhaps a reference to North by Northwest with, the climax of that little sort of adventure with Stan rescuing them taking place right there. And also, Stan actually looks like he's kind of muscular. He hasn't looked like that when you've just seen him, in his undershirt. but suddenly now he has muscle. I mean, obviously we saw that he was completely ripped in that little sort of fantasy sequence in Land Before Swine, but I just kind of passed that off as that wasn't real. But no, this is definitely a real scene that we see now where Stanley's actually seem to be quite strong. I'm not sure if they're ever that's come into play anywhere, or if they're ever gonna sort of explain, if he works out secretly, during the night or something. So yeah, that could be interesting again. I can't really think of much else to say about this one. I mean, I don't know if maybe they're going to bring back the fact that Tyler is now the mayor. That could be interesting. Maybe he will introduce some kind of weird policies. I mean, we don't really know much about Tyler other than his obvious "get him" catchphrase that he's always sort of doing. He just sort of randomly crops up here and there, not really having much significance other than just being a recurring gag. So I don't know if maybe we're going to find out a bit more about him now that he's mayor. Who knows? But yeah, again, this is sort of all just sort of setting things up maybe for later. Is kind of intriguing me about it. The actual episode itself was just kind of okay, made me laugh a few times, but again, this type of plot just doesn't interest me. I'm not quite sure if maybe they were trying to make reference to a lot of the sort of ridiculous political policies that various places in America have with the whole, eagle, whatever thing, kissing, the candidate that it wanted to be mayor, for throwing the birdseed. Is that, reference to any actual policies or rituals that they have when it comes to electing mayors in America? I don't know. I mean, they say that, they've had this mayor for almost 100 years, so evidently they just haven't thought to, change their policies about electing a mayor in that whole time. So I guess it was kind of makes sense that their rituals for electing a mayor would be a bit old-fashioned. Robbie is still going out with Tambry. Again, good little bit of continuity there. Wendy was in it, but only for one scene. Again, they really don't seem to know what to do with Wendy, do they? It's kind of disappointing, really, because I would have been interested to see a bit more of her now. Now that the whole Dipper Wendy thing is over with. But it seemed that was really all the real use they had out of her. It was just going to be Dipper's love interest for a time, and now they don't really know what she's doing. So that's disappointing, really. I kind of miss her, actually. I kind of want to see a bit more from her now. I want to see more of Tad Strange. Just, a character that exists purely to be like a blank slate, basically. I thought when Mabel was talking about a blank slate that they could manipulate however they wanted, I thought she was talking about Tad Strange, but no, Zeus. I'm not quite sure if that really works. I wouldn't call Zeus a blank slate, really. But yeah, kind of enjoyable enough. But yeah, I'm excited to see Gideon again. I'm excited to see Bill again, and what's going to happen with him and possibly Ford. How he's going to react when he sees Bill for the first time. I'm very excited about that. But yeah, that's that, guys, and I will see you in, I think, 2 weeks is the next episode. So I'll see you soon.